Thank you guys so much for coming to the 25th Annual Austin Film Festival, the Writers Festival. We're really glad to see you here. Have any of you, are any of you from Texas? Have you spent time here before?
First time.
Totally new.
I think, yes. No, actually, Tarot was here. For us too, it's the first time.
Oh, really?
You've been here.
I've been here once last year to the film festival Fantastic Fest.
Oh, sure.
For my feature film called Jailbreak, right now on Netflix.
That's
and
nice.
I'm so happy to be here again with this awesomeness producer and filmmaker for the Surviving Bokator, because last year I've been representing Bokator as well, but in the acting in the movie. But this one is the film documentary. It's about the real life without acting. It's so real life behind the scene, and it showed a lot what I was going through with my teammate and my grandmaster, and bring it back, the Bokator back to life. So I'm so grateful for being here.
And if I can just add to that. Our film, a documentary, actually takes place, we started shooting 8 years ago, and it takes place before her career as an actress, as a stunt person, and as a martial artist, a fighter, even took off. So everything that you see of her now in Jailbreak, and actually she was recently in Angelina Jolie's last film, First They Killed My Father, that is, the film that we did is her significantly younger, just learning for the first time Bokator under Grandmaster Sen Kim-sin.
Yeah. So, Mark, you're the director. Whose idea was this? Or, did you read an article? Did you visit Cambodia? What kind of sparked your interest and knowledge of Bokator?
I'm going to say it was by accident in a way, and it was also timing, right place, the right time. Sandra and I were working in Southeast Asia at the time, and we both had an interest in visiting at some point Cambodia. I can't sit still as being a filmmaker, and I need to find purpose. I'm not one to sort of go to all the tourist traps and sit on the beach and that kind of thing. So I had all my gear with me, of course, and I just wanted to find something interesting to shoot. And it didn't have to be a doc, it didn't have to be anything, but just something, for me at that time, it was more of a visual thing, like a cinematographer's kind of, something to add to the reel perhaps. And I thought martial arts. Why not? Cambodia, rural Cambodia. And I started doing a little bit of digging and learned at that point that there were no martial arts in Cambodia. All the other areas had martial arts, but Cambodia did not. And I dug just a bit further, and it was around the same time that Grandmaster Sen Kim-sin had posted his first Facebook page, about Bokator and the work that he was doing. And I read up, and I'm like, you're kidding me. And the story of the fact that it had been decimated, Bokator, by the Khmer Rouge 40 years ago, that he was now bringing it back. He was collecting skills from the surviving masters. He was attempting to pass it now on to the young generation. So we were in Phnom Penh, I guess, about a month after that, and we had connected with him. And I sat in his academy in Orose Market, Sandra and I, and we'd met you on that first day as well, and Dedit and some of the others.
Oh, really? The first day?
And I just listened to his story, and it was just so clear to me that this was, a film. But it was meant more to be in the beginning kind of a short film, just about here's what this man is doing, just to put something out there, tape for a few days, a week or whatever. But he was soon about to find out about whether they were to be accepted by UNESCO to go to Korea and to compete, to show Bokator for the very first time to the world there against all these other martial arts, traditional martial arts. And so the trajectory for me in terms of a sort of a bigger story, it started to take place there. It was never the initial goal. Yeah.
Okay, so Sandra, you were there from the beginning, and as a producer, how do you go about, or who were some of the key people that you were needing to form relationships with? I assume you guys needed to set up residence in Cambodia for quite a while to meet everyone, especially such young people.
Yeah, that's true. So, the initial plan was the short film, so that was a little easier from that angle. We knew we had, I think, a 3-week time frame first, and that's when we met. We did the initial filming, but because we were in Southeast Asia, we had the opportunity to go back and forth quite often at that time. And then, as Mark mentioned, later on, kind of the invitation came to perform for the first time ever on international stage. And so it was clear we want to go and film there, and that would be the end of the film. But then, so we did, and I guess they did very well there. So I'm not going to give everything away.
No spoilers.
Yes, exactly. But however, after returning from there, I think that was kind of our big eye-opener. We thought everybody would be just celebrated, and because it was a big weight on their shoulder to perform, to be chosen as the representative for this martial art, and so we thought they would be celebrated based on their success. However, it actually wasn't necessarily like that, and that's when we realized there's a lot more depth to it. It's not easy to bring back something which was lost, because of the older generation as well. Many young people didn't even know of Bokator, even though it's their own tradition. So that's where we felt actually that's really interesting, and something we want to kind of continue to follow and see what happens, instead of the Hollywood ending of, yeah, here we are, it's all good and great, and ending kind of in Korea. From a producing aspect, I guess that whole aspect made it difficult because initially we took kind of the risk also to somewhat self-finance it. A short film, you can somewhat wing it, and kind of like the filming itself and living in Cambodia is not so expensive, right? So the post is then kind of what makes the difference. But then because we decided to continue longer and longer, it actually became then somewhat more difficult. We thought it would be easier because then we could show them a lot more what we have footage-wise and the strength of the characters. However, it actually kind of was then turning nearly that. So, well, now you've already shot so much, we'll kind of just wait and then buy it later or so. So it actually was a really difficult project to finance. I mean, basically nearly impossible.
We didn't finance it.
Yes.
we took it on ourselves in the end.
The high majority. But
so you go ahead.
So I was just going to add. Initially, we had set up, as Sandra was saying, for a few weeks, but that ended up becoming initially, at least the first year, for 7 months. And we lived close to Orose Market, close to the club, and we had built some great relationships too, not only with the people that were in the film itself, but the community that sort of grew up around that, other youth that were part of the club that eventually became filmmakers. They started helping out with some sound and with this and with second cameras and this kind of thing. So, but eventually it became 5 years, almost 6 years of shooting. Just sporadically going in, sometimes for a couple of weeks, sometimes for a couple of months, just to sort of new developments would happen, or there would be just to tie up some loose ends, that kind of thing. So,
well, you had another project you could do kind of from there in the meantime, like the post, and then do a few other things. You ask about people to connect with, like I guess in Cambodia, unlike probably like many countries, but obviously you do need film permits and permission, especially on the Angkor Wat by the temples. So it was kind of tricky and important to kind of get that. Certain things obviously in the club, and so you can do as long as you have the permission of the people. But we got then the support from the project angle from the National Olympic Committee in Cambodia, who is a great supporter of the film and obviously of Bokator itself. So he's from the official government side, really the driving force. And more recently now, like the Ministry of Culture and Ministry of Tourism, kind of they hope based on the positive message in the film that it will kind of benefit. But I mean, Cambodia is very different that they're not giving money. There's no funds for that.
Sure.
You actually pay the broadcaster.
Yeah.
You don't get money from the broadcaster if they screen it. You pay them to screen it, and you can say thank you. So it's a very different world from that angle. But you need their support, otherwise they won't screen it.
Sure.
So yeah.
I like how, so in the beginning, for people that aren't familiar with recent Cambodian history, you do drop in a few moments to explain a small piece of what happened when the Khmer Rouge came against Cambodia. And I mean, the brutality of the Pol Pot regime and the terrible, terrible things that happened, but you didn't want to settle on that, didn't want to focus on that. So yeah, let's go from there. Why you decided to? I know that's a hook for a lot of people. You know, it's because it tears at the heartstrings, but at the same time, this is more of a story about the healing decades later, more than it is about the brutality that happened.
Yeah, I'll give a short answer and then you can expand maybe on that. And I think that was really kind of the point. Like all the films we knew were more about negative aspects of Cambodia, and we experienced
landmines, land appropriation, corruption. There's just so much out there. In fact, that was our, sorry to jump in, but that was our initial impression of Cambodia before starting to work there, because of just other media that we had seen, The Killing Fields, for example, and so many other films that have come since. But it didn't, and maybe you're going to say this story, but it didn't end up becoming sort of what we had experienced when we were there living. It was just very much the opposite. So that was, maybe you're going to say this, Sandra, that was kind of the reason to want to. It was important to sort of mention that, obviously, because you have to bring the audience up to speed with what Cambodia today, despite the fact that the genocide was 40 years ago, it is still haunted by the genocide. And you don't really sense it until you get into the deeper layers. Sure. And this is why it's important to sort of set the film up to say, this horrible thing has happened. It has, it's a deep wound in the nation. Now here's our film, just to sort of get it out there, but not to dwell on it. Because again, the film isn't about the negativity of the genocide. It's about the hopes and the dreams of young people like Angkor Wat, and the work of survivalists and people like Grandmaster Sen Kim Sin, who are trying to bring back old traditions.
Yeah, like actually the median of the age of the population in Cambodia went back in 2010 when we started. Now it's maybe slightly higher, was 25 or 26 years old.
Wow.
Because the majority of the older generation died or got killed.
A quarter of the population.
Yeah.
Died
it's
during
unreal.
the genocide.
And then I guess from what we experienced from our side is that the survivors, they did not talk with their children about what has happened, because I guess it's such a we never can imagine on what they went through, right? And so then like Tarat and others, they learned very, very late, and you can maybe talk about your kind of experience from that.
Speak a little more to that, about how your parents, grandparents did or didn't.
Like Sandra just said, like the survivor didn't want to tell the story to their kids. Like my own dad, I've heard about his story not through his mouth, from his student, or when journalists went to interview him, how could he survive until today, because he was one of the famous violinists in 1960s. So everyone back then, they got killed. Every people they educate, rich people who speak more than two language, and like musician and singer, they were all get killed. But my dad, he told that the music saved him. Like they caught him because he was lying to the Angkor, we call Angkor, which is organization of Pol Pot. He lied that he was an employee for the Chinese company, something like that, until they found out that he's a musician, and then they got him to the killing field. And then a group of them, they said, well, maybe we can use this guy to play for the Angkor music band or group for Angkor or something like that. So then my dad plays violin, and then they said, let's keep him for the band. So one of the million, lucky guy. So like Grandmaster also, like, well, I'm glad he shared his story in the film, so that the young generation can know, even they didn't get through, but they can observe and they can learn what our old generation had going through. So it's an experience of life that this young generation should learn and should know about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess just to add on, I guess overall it's like we knew obviously about the genocide. We did some research as well, but
sure.
I guess you never know kind of until you meet the people and you learn through their stories, right? And what it really kind of meant. And I guess also one thing I'm still even surprised is how long it affected them. So the Khmer Rouge was only 4 years. I mean, that seemed like an eternity if you're in it, obviously.
Absolutely.
But then the Vietnamese came, and then they were in refugee camps. Like Angkor Wat was born in 1990, still in a refugee camp.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where I guess it's a country healing. But when we went there, we experienced total opposite than what we expected. We thought we would meet broken people, right? And I'm sure there's definitely some of the survivors which are struggling, which is totally understandable. But overall, we were just taken by how they look forward, how positive, how giving a nation they are. Like, it's wonderful, and we were just kind of totally fascinated by that. But then on the other side, and the reason why it's also in the film is, we were surprised how many North Americans have no idea what happened. I think that's kind of the other aspect where we did not not want to focus at all on it. We discussed what do we have in there, how much of the footage, but it was still important to make people aware, to understand why was Bokator lost, why don't young people know, because the older generation just hasn't told them anything from the past, kind of. Like kind of lost my point, the second point.
No, your loss of point sparked a point in me.
Okay, good.
I mean, that's to arrive there. The genocide sure was a civil war in a way. I mean, 4 years of people being driven into slavery. The cities were emptied. Everyone is forced to labor in the countryside. 2.5 million people died, approximately. Still, you don't know. Still finding bodies today. But the thing that really sort of was an eye-opener to me and just was initially stumped me was the whole concept of a cultural genocide. And first of all, why? And that's, you could go on forever. I'm sure, historians will be debating that forever. But also, what are the results today, right? So what is culture to people? And when you strip that away, it's how you identify as an American, all your songwriters, all your talk show hosts, everybody dead, everybody sought out, all your hockey players, all your sports stars, everyone who represents, for you as a nation or even as a person, a sense of identity and self and how you connect to each other and how you relate to each other, through anything, music, right? And what does that look like today? How do you come back from that loss? And this is what's so amazing about Cambodia, because there's a lot of things that you look around and why do they do this, or why does scaffolding look like this instead of that, or and you come to realize that Cambodians have figured it out. They figured it out in their own way because their teachers were taken from them. And so now they rely so much on there's a huge investment of people from other countries who are coming. And I say investment, I don't mean in terms of financial opportunity, but I mean people coming in who can teach stuff, filmmakers coming in to teach filmmaking so local people can learn those skills and carry on for themselves. And engineers, the same thing, healthcare, right? There's so much that has to be built still today from the ground up. And this is 40 years later. So martial art, yeah, that's culture too. But you don't think of that as, you think of it as sport, but sport is culture. You know what I mean? So there's all of these things that really were playing for me as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, which is so much of the backstory. And also as a filmmaker, the challenge is, it's essential to put that into the film so that it's understood for the audience, but that's not the film. The film is, the heart of the film was the transference of the martial art, of this culture, from the elder generation, who are soon passing away, the genocide survivors, onto the young people who are going to be the future teachers and leaders and masters of tomorrow. And it's that link. And if there's a stumble or a drop of the football somewhere, between that transference, then it's gone forever, right? So that was kind of what our film ended up being, was that. So
I thought it was really interesting when the Grandmaster was telling his story, how he pointed out, yes, anyone who was an artist or university education was a target, but also he as a practitioner of this ancient martial art was as well. And I was kind of like, well, I guess, you know, the Grandmaster is almost like a folk hero. It sounded like, you know, they didn't want him around because that was a personality that the people could draw hope from, really rally behind and take a lot of pride in. I mean, is that accurate, do you feel like?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure if it was like, I mean, he may have this type of personality, but I think it was more in a bigger scheme, kind of based on, if you know martial arts, yes, you can get people behind you and then you fight against the Khmer Rouge. So I guess it was from that angle. Yeah, but I mean, he is a leader and he has a strong personality. So yes, it may have been, but I think it's more overall, like all the martial artists, because they could become a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought one of the things that I found most interesting, which granted, Americans have zero knowledge of Cambodian history, honestly. But just from film and everything, you know, when the Academy makes the trip to Korea and you see other martial arts teams on stage, some of it looked familiar to me because to American audiences, we do recognize karate, or we recognize kung fu, or with the popularity of MMA these past several years, we would recognize Muay Thai. But seeing you practice Bokator was something completely new to me. It was really amazing in that respect. So can you tell me a little bit more about the time at the competition? Did you get the chance to interact with any of the other teams? I assume you at least watched their demonstrations some of the time?
Yeah, we did watch their competition or their demonstration before we get on stage to compete. And that was what made us so concerning and worried about, because we're so new, like you said, but the Bokator itself, it's not new. It was like 1,000 years ago from our ancient people that left for us. It's just sad that the young generation in my country didn't know, even myself, when I found out the first that Cambodia already had this beautiful heritage, and I was so amazed, and I just wanted to know and knowledge about that martial art. That's why I put myself through it until now. Even my family wanted to stop me. And in that time in Korea, like, I had already in mind that we are no way to like beat those team or something like that. We're not gonna win them, because I already had the negative thought that time. Well, because it was my first time traveling outside the country.
Absolutely.
First time to compete with the international. And so it's kind of nervous and everything concerning, and I felt sick as well. And yeah, you can saw that on film. But then there were just some positive thoughts that brought me like more energy. So I was thinking like that, well, let's forget all about the bad stuff, bringing energy, and then think like that, no matter what you win or lose, do your best. Show the world that Cambodia have beautiful martial art like the others, and that is the time that give you the best opportunity to share and to open the window and to open the light for people around the world see that Cambodian young generation now is like get up and then try to separate and promote, try to spread the word and promote the Bokator to the world. So that's when I felt like, okay, let's get up, be strong, and then go on the stage. So
how old were you when you started practicing Bokator? Like you mentioned a little bit in the film that your mother at least was not enthusiastic about this, and how encouraging your teammates were, how encouraging the Grandmaster is in your practice.
I was starting martial art when I was 18. Well, now I'm 28. So it's kind of a big challenge between me and my parents, especially my mom. And because she's also a very traditional woman, she wanted me to become like other girl, the regular one who worked in the house taking care of family, and I'm the one who broke the rules family. And what encouraged me is Grandmaster's advice, so special. He said three main things that I've always remember in my mind. One is to protect myself. Two is like being healthy, and then the important thing number three is to keep our culture alive and share and pass it on to the young generation. So I always keep that in my mind, and it keeps courage me until today. And these three main things, every time I go on the TV or radio, I always say that to the young people like my age, or the teenager, or even the old generation like my mom and parents. So once I get win over my mom is when I won the gold medal in the national competition, and I told her, look, I don't train martial art for fight people. I train martial art for a big thing, Mom, for our country. So you should be proud, and please be proud of me, because as a daughter and as a woman, being strong like this, it's rarely in the country. And you will see, I want to change some or woman's mind that she said doing martial art is just for men, and you won't be look pretty as you used to, because you're gonna gain muscle and something like that. I wanna prove them wrong. I wanna make them look like, to see like different picture that woman with muscle and strong mind is so sexy. It's so sexy and beautiful. I kind of see some women nowadays try to become like me, and then they comment on Facebook, social media, they say, I want to become strong like you. Oh, look at your body muscle, blah, blah, blah. And then it makes my mind blow away, and that's what Grandmaster and I wanted that thing to be. And so I hope a few years later it's going to change their mind, and I hope everyone will love Bokator and try to train, even they don't want to become a fighter. At least they know and they knowledge it, and I hope they pass it on to their next generation. And yeah, I hope the world will know more about Cambodia, because as you just said, like Western or
Westerners don't know.
They don't know.
They don't
so
know.
now they can know. It's like it's surviving.
Have you seen more young women enter the sport?
I have
now
before
with your influence.
Yeah, in my influence now, I can see that. Well, I keep saying, not just focus like I. The main thing I always say Bokator, because I'm the one who practice it. But any sport is very good for you. Just do sport. It makes your health like good, and then you can like. Do job and daily life is like faster and better, and you feel confident, because in my country the biggest case is women got raped and they had no idea to escape that moment. So if they do sport, they kind of like think better. They can move fast, at least they can run fast, then they can save themselves and shout loudly to ask people to help, because once you get shocked, you're like this, and you couldn't say stuff. So doing sport, and especially martial art, it is help a lot, because it changed me myself. I used to be a very shy girl. I don't make friend. I didn't talk much, and I wasn't brave enough to make communicate with people. But now I changed, and everybody said I am different. I'm indifferent to be better, confident. Yes.
Well, I guess when the film picks up, you had already been practicing Bokator for several years, and so we don't see you when you first enter the school. But when you did, there was some tension with you and your mom. But how did the boys in the school look at you? You do mention in the film about Darith, like I love him as my brother. We're family. But
well, yeah, that's when we've been practicing a long time and spent a close moment with each other already. My first time to enter the class, like, I got so much attention from the boys, but most of them said, "Whoa, what are you? Look at you. Yeah, you came in the wrong place, or maybe, are you sure you're gonna handle this? You can handle this?" So this kind of words, like, push me forward, and then I want to prove them wrong. Even my mom and my brother and my relative said to my mom that you should not let her daughter do that. Please, it's kind of embarrassed. That word is so mean to me. And also my neighborhood, they said, are you sure you're going to let your daughter do this? You don't feel like ashamed at all? And most of the guys just pick on me. They said, doing martial art, are you going to win me? Like, you're going to win us too, or something like that. And then one word I remember, they said it on Facebook. They said, I only can perform doing Bokator, dancing, and you cannot be in the real fight. What's the point to do the martial art? You cannot even fight. So then that word like hit in my head so hard, and I just want to prove them wrong that, okay, well, you will see. And then I improved myself into the real fight, which is we call Kun Khmer. What Bokator is cover the whole technique. So Kun Khmer is, to you guys, you can see us like it's similar to Muay Thai. Of course, we are similar culture. Mm-hmm. So then I proved them wrong, and they said, wow, this girl even stronger than us. I've never been in the real fight on the ring, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So I didn't fight back to them. It just hurt my feeling that it pushed me forward to become better and stronger, and then get back to them and look at me, search me on internet, and you will see now who I am. Well, I'm a real fighter. I'm not a dancer in martial art, okay? I can be dancing, I can be fighting, okay? So then you should be quiet and proud of me as a woman who represent the whole Cambodia.
I love that.
My record in Kun Khmer is 17 fights. I lost 4, draw 2, knock out the opponent 2 times, and then I have 5 MMA fights, 3 wins, 2 losses.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, so when you met Mark and Sandra, how did you feel about them? Like, how did you? What was it about them that made you feel trusting of them, and I feel good about talking to them? I feel good about them having a camera here in front of me. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm going to be exploited or embarrassed or anything like that.
First time I met them, Mark and Sandra, they were like so friendly foreigners to us, because we like talking and smiling, and then I saw them talking so long with my grandmaster, so I like felt happy that they have a good relationship with my grandmaster. But honestly, to be honest, once they start to interview me, the first day it's okay, but then they start to do the film, so they ask to come film me every day. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, honestly, oh my God, they're so annoying. And I don't want to interview, and I don't like talking. Mm-hmm. And then they made me, like, so they ask questions and we have to answer. I'm like, oh my God, am I going to do this every day? And then, oh my God, they're coming again today. I was like this, man, I'm so sorry. But until I saw the film, oh my God, and then I feel like they did best to my life. This film is like a huge, show it a big part of my life to the world. And you cannot see yourself every day doing that, well, because you focus on you doing what you're doing. But once after the film come out, you can see everything that you have done. It's just great. And I feel grateful, and I feel thankful for you too, again and again. And I feel like me and them are family right now, I can say, because I love them so much right now for what they are doing for my Bokator family, and also the whole Cambodia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
yeah, go ahead.
To that. I think I was very impressed. Nobody in the film that we had worked with said no, and or said stop, and it was a relationship of trust, and it was also a relationship of trust and openness on both parts, because you want in that relationship for everyone to be truthful, about their experience, who they are, that kind of thing. And I mean, you brought us places which I don't think many, even some of your closest friends, you were telling us, like your own home, and meeting your father and your parents and seeing your father, and asking those difficult questions about, and then crying on camera, like being so open and with your emotions. Like she did that many times, but but that's a position of trust, or that's, and that for me was I felt very honored, to have built that, not to have built that relationship, but to, and we had shot over years and years and years and years, of course, but this was fairly early on, I would say, like within, a few weeks, that initial trust was built from the beginning, and it just continued to grow, and now we're all family, because we have shared interests, of course, in seeing what you guys are doing grow, and continue to blossom and to have its natural course. But yeah, I mean, that's a real place of honor for a filmmaker, is to have somebody give you that, it's a contract of sorts, which is not really a written thing, it's just an understanding. Yeah.
Well, there was, we touched on it a little bit earlier, there was another, level of trust you guys needed there, because you needed to work with the government to get access, to the Olympic committee you mentioned was very supportive, but you also shot a little bit of footage at Angkor Wat, which, if Westerners know one thing about Cambodia, it's that they will recognize Angkor Wat. But, I've only seen kind of these stock photos of it, or, only heard the little bit that my history professor told me in college, this is a temple, it's in Cambodia, I had no idea about the incredible wall art and the significance of the architecture, and how this plays into the film, some of the things that the Grand Master is doing. So tell me a little bit more about getting permission to go there and how you were going to shoot it, because I mean, really, you have these images of Angkor Wat that are so much more majestic than kind of the postcard type photos that Americans are used to seeing on Instagram.
Well, Angkor Wat was kind of, in retrospect, I should have taken Grandmaster there earlier on, because I think I would have learned a lot more just from having him there, physically being with the stones and with the carvings in the stones. Just to back up a little bit, the roots of Bokator can be found on the walls of Angkor.
Yeah.
This traditional fighting style, which goes back, 1,200 years, I believe, and it was allowed the Angkorian Empire to occupy Southeast Asia. I mean, it was massive for 500 years using this martial art. And so, and this is another part of the backstory of the film, is how do you inject that backstory without making the film about that, right? So we found those moments in the film, and shooting in Angkor Wat was, of course, it was a place of honor for us, because that is the heart of the Khmer identity. Of the Cambodian identity is Angkor Wat, and Khmers of today are still linked to that as they've always been. That is their direct lineage back to that empire, and that's why Bokator, I'm getting off track here, but that's why, and I think it's clear in the film, but that's why Bokator is so important, its revival, because it is the strength of that empire, and that strength was taken from them during the Khmer Rouge. They were crushed. Culturally, their strength was their fire was snuffed out. So the fact that it's coming back now is a symbol of that strength and that pride, going back to that early time when they were on top, right? So, but and maybe this is a producing question in terms of the investment. It was actually probably the most expensive part of the film to do, because we didn't have any special status. We had to pay the same rate that they pay filmmakers. I think it was $1,000 a day just to do drone work, which we did for one day. Got in, got out. That was it. Around the temples, but also you have to get there very specific times of the day because there's so many tourists, right? So we had to really find our moments to bring Grandmaster there, to have him touching, going through the walls, and and having some of those big wide shots that you see there. So was that sort of what you're going to talk about, the money part of it, or?
No, well, yeah. No, I guess just in general, I think it's actually very difficult. Maybe now, I can't talk about now how it is, but back then,
At
like
that
a few
point,
years
sure.
ago, because a lot is changing in Cambodia. So, but to get permits as a Westerner as well, and the police actually is always very much out for Westerners. Like we never got stopped so many times by police, like even without filming, because for them it's kind of just trying to find a source of money.
The traffic cops.
Traffic cops anywhere, kind of, yeah. But
like
based on that, you actually you had to kind of always be careful. And obviously, Angkor Wat is the most important cultural, I don't know, relics, like temple. That like there's so many. Like there's the Angkor. There's you know how many, but 50 different temples or whatever. But there's obviously the most famous one. And you need permit. They're very protective of that. You only have them very limited time frames and the times. And actually one little story actually about the behind the scene, I think, which was interesting. There's we had because they had for the Songkram, so the Khmer New Year festival, they now got, because they're pushing internally to promote Bokator more, they finally kind of got accepted to do a performance by the Angkor Temple. So that was a very special moment. And also actually the I think it was the Prime Minister, Hun Sen, was supposed to come there for this event, but that didn't then happen. But there's always a lot of last minute things, and things change, and so that is, from that angle, it's always a challenge. But then we had just this one opportunity there to go, because the thing was they were then busy. The Grandmaster was busy being at performing. So during the time we got the permit, we only had a small window to take him really into the Angkor compound to film, and then we had to make sure that we could block the tourists off and so on. And we had our 2-year son by there with us. And so when we were filming there in front of Angkor, he took off. And Mark had no clue filming. And I was like, what do I do now? Do I continue focusing on the film? Do I look for my son? Try to find him, couldn't. It's like, okay, I hope like he's with the Cambodian kids, so which he was. So they brought him back safely. But yeah, so it was kind of interesting because you only have very small windows then. And then that's your chance. You got to do it. Otherwise, you got to wait the whole permit again. And so that's sometimes challenging. But anyways.
And just to sort of quantify, I mean, that it's not that Westerners are regularly stopped by the police. It's just that it is a source, more the traffic cops is more a source of income for them.
Sure.
Because you become a policeman as a way to earn money. You earn peanuts as it is, and everyone is trying to find ways to earn a little bit more, So if you have a motorcycle on with its light on in the daytime, they want to pull you aside, and then you got to sort of like, is it $5, is it $10, whatever, you can sort of bargain for the fine, that kind of thing. So
it's totally safe.
It's completely safe. Yeah, it's not to give the wrong impression of Cambodia. Exactly it. Yeah, it's more disruptive than anything. Cambodia is not to be feared, to be honest with you.
Not at all.
It's just an amazing place. The people are incredible, as you see in the film. I'd love to move there and live there forever, but Sandra would be away from her skiing, so that would be kind of difficult. But
well, last question before we go: where's the film headed, and what are your hopes for the film? Kind of your biggest dream for the film.
Well, I'll throw the distribution to Sandra, but my biggest dreams for the film, I mean, it's never changed from when we started filming, and that was I was feeling that I saw the struggle of Grandmaster Sen Kim Sin, with whatever means that he could afford, be it a borrowing money or who knows what, just to sort of keep this club alive. And you see it in the club, you see it in the film, actually, he loses the club, right? And it happened in front of our cameras, which as a filmmaker is fortuitous for us, but it was a very somber occasion for you guys. But it also represented the precarious state that they were in. You know, it's dollar to day, it's like hand to mouth, this kind of thing, right? So, but I don't think I ever said this to him directly, but my goal was to bring attention to the struggle of Cambodians to revive their lost culture. And if I can keep doing that through the film, and if more people can learn about that, and if they can get a bit of a leg up, so to speak, I mean, then my mission, if you will, would have been completed, you know, because we all have skills, we all have the tools in our individual lives, and sometimes you don't know how to apply those tools, and then suddenly you're in a situation where you have this opportunity to film this, you know, transference of an ancient culture onto the youth. And it's almost like the Bruce Lee movie, you know, if, you know, Bruce Lee coming to America and bringing, you know, Asian martial arts there, and, you know, to capture that moment, you know, was such an honor for me. It was such a privilege, and I do see it as a privilege, as an opportunity to do whatever that I can with my skills to help. So, yeah. You want to speak about distribution? Where to? What's next?
No, first I want to actually add. I think that the biggest goal for the film, first it was bringing awareness to kind of the determination of Cambodians and their positive drive and Bokator through the characters. But there's of course many others, but we wanted to focus and profile on them. But then I think through the film, and especially through the test screening, like the editing part, we realized that there was so much more to it, which really just came out strongly in the editing about the impact it has on Cambodians, which we kind of always assumed it would have a certain impact, but how deep an impact actually that really surprised and touches us. How the ones which now see the film, how they react and how they get emotional about it and how thankful they are. But then beside that, I think also other people reached out. North America is made up from so many immigrants from many, many places. And they reached out as well, and how the film impacts them because they have somewhat similar stories. So for them, it's also about coming here, maybe not learning some of the traditions because the parents didn't teach them, and at some point they realize kind of the loss and how it makes them feel maybe empty in one part about their own heritage. And I think that's kind of, it wasn't a goal we set out, but it was something that we learned, and through that we actually formulated more goals, new goals, and that leads into the distribution, because initially we thought, yeah, we'll do traditional kind of festivals, and then if possible a theatrical, and then a broadcast, right? But I think, so yes, we still want to do all the traditional aspects, of course then also like VOD and if we get into Netflix, or that's all kind of to be discussed. But I think the film has a really long-term opportunity now with community screenings as well, to reach out different communities, the Cambodians definitely, the Jewish community is something we want to reach out. We got some really good input on there because it's about the challenge of reviving what was lost. There's unfortunately many countries which have the same struggle, and I think the film can be an inspiring moment for them, hopefully.
Yeah.
Just to quickly add, I touched on this briefly beforehand, but the Cambodia that we had understood to be when we went in and started filming, as I mentioned, was very different from the Cambodia that we experienced during our time there. And this was another goal, is a chance to sort of change the perspective, you know, change how it is that we see Cambodia, because genocide, there's so many films on that, but I would like to see sort of people moving away from that in a way, you know, and to do something more celebratory, or something which speaks to some of the themes that we have in the film, the hopes, the dreams of, you know, the youth. Like you see it for yourself, you know, it's probably not the Cambodia you imagined it would be, right? So I'm sure it's a place that you would like to learn more about, you know, given what you've seen, just from meeting the subjects of the film itself, but also seeing the life, the energy that Phnom Penh or the great temples of Angkor or the majestic countryside, would bring. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
I was just going to pass.
Hi, thank you. I don't have much to say, but my biggest hope is I hope that both generation, the before generation and then the next generation, will learn a lot about from this film, like to forgive and forget each other, be nice to each other, loving and care each other as a family, and then. Well, what we get feedback the most of the audience is said this movie is very inspired them. So I really, really want to request like most people to come see, like a lot of people to come see this film because, and some of audiences said after watching this film, it changed their life. So, which just means so much. So I hope it should and hit the heart of the audience. And my biggest hope is I hope that Netflix would be interested to have our movie on their website. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you being here and hope to see you all in Austin again.
Thank you so much for having us.